Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma and I'm really excited about our jam today. We're going to be talking about the qualities of a master teacher. And just so you know, very likely you are teaching someone or somebody something very, very special in your life. So here we go. Welcome to the Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can sparkle just a little bit brighter each and every day. If what you hear speaks to your soul, go ahead and give us a rating and a review in iTunes. You can also find us on SoundCloud and Stitcher. And hey, if there's somebody in your life that you think would enjoy this podcast, go ahead and share it with them. Well, hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Kisma.
How's your week been?
It's been quite a week.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, lots of fun things. Family in town.
Family weddings, friends, wine,
there was
sugar.
Wine. Yeah.
It's going to be a major detox week looking ahead.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Although I did kick my workout into...
Yeah, you've been doing some crazy Spartacus something or other.
The Spartacus and the Insanity. Those are my go-tos. I really enjoy both of them. Mm-hmm. My body is finally not as sore, which is nice. So I'm gonna clean up my diet a little bit more, which I think most people would argue is probably more important. But I feel like if I'm like moving, then I have a little bit more incentive to. Yeah,
I just think we got to move, we got to eat right, we got to do our energy, we got to look at our thoughts, like the whole shebang, right? This is the whole shebang.
You got to have the whole shebang. But I think when you leave out some of those important pieces, I'm amazed at what is possible with just the energy component. Mm-hmm. You know, it's really, really phenomenal. But it doesn't give permission to neglect the body. And I'll be honest, I've been a little neglectful.
You've been a little, as have I. So we're switching that up. And it's very interesting when we talk about the whole shebang today, everyone, because Nick and I it's actually Easter Sunday. So we're recording this on Easter, which for some of you might was a great holiday. For others, it's not part of your faith. And as you know, we here at Illumination Podcast, our ancient teachings are really about philosophy. And yes, this encompasses spirituality, but it is not designed for any one faith or religion. This is for everyone. But one of the things that we could not ignore when we were contemplating Easter was how Jesus was a master teacher. And so it led us down this path of pondering and thinking about the qualities of a master teacher, what those really mean, and how we can take those qualities and bring them into our own lives.
Yeah, and I think fair warning, I'm certainly no expert on Jesus, nor am I an expert on the Bible. Mm-hmm. But what I look for in these teachings, I was raised Catholic, so this was definitely a part of my life. And then I was a trumpet player for all those years and spent a lot of time in churches, especially on these big holidays. But really, from a philosophical standpoint, I'm always looking at how does this tie together? Where are those common threads that go through? Because those are the eternal truths. Yeah. Not all the dogma that gets, that separates one from the other and all that. Those are ephemeral things. They're changing, right? It's the common threads of that truth. And I think when you boil that down, it becomes like so much more simple than it's often made out to be. It's really so simple. And the master teachers reflect these in a really powerful way. In my experience, and I have had the absolute blessing to have not only great mentors in my life, but also have had experience with some truly stellar teachers, truly phenomenal teachers.
We really have, for sure.
And so in my own experience, I don't know how you related to this, but for me, I just noticed that it's not always so easy to see these things on the surface, right? It's so easy to look at the personality.
Yeah, there is a difference. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. But yes, it's so easy to look at the personality, but we're going deeper into the qualities of that human.
The true character. Yeah, and some of the deeper things that are happening there. So
there's that saying in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Take the teachings and not the teacher, or ignore the personality of the teacher, but take the teachings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very interesting because there's, and I love it even when they talk about the sages and the saints and the self-realized soul, like whatever personality they had, once that human pops into a self-realized state, they still have that personality.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's truth that can be found everywhere if you know how to look,
Right.
know how to reference that information that we've already gained and to vet it out to find the truth.
Right.
I've heard amazing things from people who you would not expect would have that kind of information, but it's hearing it in the right way and it's knowing how to glean that knowledge.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that the teachers in my life have imparted to me. Is an ability to find that anywhere.
Yeah. And so we share these because all of us are teachers, all of us are students, and all of us are teachers. And you may be teaching your family, your team, your staff. You might be a teacher in schools and universities. God bless you a million times. You might be teaching yourself. But we're all looking for ways to arrive at that self-mastery. And, when we start looking at these qualities, we're like, well, a master teacher is really someone who has mastered themselves.
Truly. And it's goes beyond just teaching, I think, as a master teacher, but really and truly, these are qualities of leadership.
Qualities of divine leadership. Yeah. So true. Yeah. Well, let's dive in.
What do you got?
Okay. And for those of you listening, like if you come up with one that we didn't mention, shoot us an email, info@sourcemovement.com, or post on our show notes. There's a little Facebook thread underneath that you can post, but let's dive in. We came up with some, and the first one, these are in no particular order because as you'll see, if a master teacher, a human, has one, they generally will have all of these, which is a really beautiful thing about qualities. But I put down influence in a positive way. And I think, Nick, that really came to me because we are in a world of manipulation. We see manipulation in governments and politics. We see manipulation in even the speaker, guru, expert industry space.
True. Yeah, for sure.
And for those of you that ever are in front of speakers, and some don't do it, many do, but there's a state of manipulation that I find really, I'm adverse to. I'm just not interested in being manipulated. I am interested in being influenced in a really positive way. Like that, to me, that word influence is like, man, just start churning the waves and give me those waves so I can just gently ride the waves and see the direction and see the path ahead of me.
Yeah. And there's, I think, a little bit of a fine line there between manipulation and influence.
What would you say is the difference?
Well,
intention?
It's, the intention behind it. And it's master teachers don't invoke their will.
Yes. Really
on it.
Important.
They help that person to connect with the deepest parts of themselves, and so that they have their express their unique quality. So it's not about what the teacher thinks they should be. Master teachers, I see, have that ability to see the potential within and to draw that out, right? That's the real meaning of educate, right? To draw out. Right. So they draw out that essence of that pure essence of,
to me. I love that. Yeah.
Of who that individual is and help them to express that rather than the will of the teacher saying, this is who you need to be.
Exactly. And I'm sure many teachers of the school system who are listening probably find frustration when they are supposed to follow specific, whether you call it guidelines or a box or whatever. And I know that so many of you see the individuation of each child and helping them to express that in a way that is unique and their truth and their essence. I am sure it can be trying in today's education system. So I totally applaud all of those teachers out there.
Yeah, in a major way. A few of them are clients, and I know those frustrations intimately, and it really does speak to the. I think the fortitude and the drive and the passion of those teachers to stay in a game that is inherently rigged to make their life harder.
Yeah. So tricky, but influence in a positive way. So that intention piece behind it. And this is really, I guess you could say this is the karma on the speaker, the teacher, whoever is, giving information. I'll talk about that in a second. But if their intention is to manipulate, that's going to be their karma. And so we as listeners want to discern, right? We want to talk about that intellect, that ability to question, is this for me or is it not for me? But as well to get so into the truth of who we are that we don't let fear get in the way of taking, the next move in our journey. So, for those of you that have done courses with us, we so applaud you that have stepped in and done things, because I know at the moment of decision, the trickster mind can step in and be like, oh, you don't need this. But your soul is speaking to you. It's like, yes, this is what I want. This is my next step. So being able to discern and really speak from your soul level, your soul truth, like, what is it that you need to move forward on? And then, Nick, you brought up a really good point, because the next quality I had written down was about not telling or giving advice, but offering information, and really offering information in a way like you described already, to peel back the layers of the student, of the client, of the people listening, in a way that allows them to discern in their own special way what it is they are to see, what it is they are to learn, what it is they are to embody.
Yeah, it's a very delicate balance I've seen of using either questions or a new bit of information in order to spark that reaction within the student,
right?
To see something either from a new perspective, or to see a different layer of themselves, or to look at things differently, and how they do that through either questions, skillful questions, or just like the injection of some new information,
like a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, a great example of this was in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is just basically venting at the beginning of, he's just totally flipping. Yeah, he's totally flipping out, and he basically exhausts himself, and then he finally asks a question. Finally, right? Surrenders enough to ask a question, and then Krishna just blows him out with the highest of the high teachings and the remainder of chapter 2 there.
Yeah.
And so it's that injection of new information that just really stuns him.
But right at the perfect time,
Oh,
the
yeah.
divine right timing.
It shocks him, though, into a new level of awareness. And then the wheels start turning. And so then beginning in chapter 3 is where he takes an extremely systematic approach from here you are as a human being, and here's the situation, my friend, all the way up to the very end of it, which is the culmination of the human experience.
When that happened, when I was shocked, I remember one of the times I was shocked with that new piece of information. It was probably our first or second trip to India, to the academy. And I remember that Swami Parthasarathi started to break down the difference between being selfish and unselfish. And so far I was like, okay, I got it. Unselfish. Like, I think for the most part, we can all describe the difference between being selfish and unselfish, right?
I would hope, yeah.
But then what does he do? He lays out this word of selfless, and he completely blew. I don't know if you remember that.
I do, yeah.
I was kind of like, what? Because it was this quality of not just unselfish, but a complete, how would you describe it? It was like, you don't even think, you just do. You just do what you're here to do. There is no need for any sort of reward or praise or any result at all. You're just doing what you're here to do. And when he described it, it was like, it is very, very few people get to that ultimate state of selfless activity.
Well, it's even difficult. I know it's even still difficult for me to really conceptualize what that would be like. You can see it in action and still not know what it is.
Exactly.
And it's actually, it's one of those things that keeps you kind of expanding and exploring and wondering, well, what is that,
Right. Yeah, it was amazing. So that was like a pattern interrupt. And until someone is ready to hear it, even though it may be able to be conceived or not, it's like, then it arrives and then the teacher delivers.
Well, it shows up. What I find really interesting about this is that if you weren't ready to hear it, you could hear it and it just kind of passes through.
Yeah, it just goes, over the head.
But when you hear it and it really strikes you, it hits that chord and you're like, whoa, it just changes the way that you look at things.
Totally.
And we've got selfish or self-centric and then unselfish, but that quality of selflessness. I'm totally losing the self, it's a whole other podcast. I think.
Master teacher will have that quality as well. But the offering of information, such an expert way that the listener, the student, the client can receive it
Yeah, speaking their language.
Speaking their language.
Yeah.
Master teacher always speaks the language.
I got this, who was awesome at this was my trumpet teacher.
Oh, interesting.
And he was phenomenal at just, because I was not the most talented. I had to work really hard to do what I did with the instrument. And I know that I must have been a frustrating student for him from time to time, but he was so tenacious with, okay, you didn't get it that way. Let's try it another way. Let's explain it another way. Let's try this. Let's try that. Very creative approach to it. Just looking for that way that I could hear it and understand it and relate it to my experience in my playing. And I always appreciated that. It's so easy to get frustrated, especially when you're one of those people that just pick things up really fast.
Right.
And then, that person's not getting it. So it's really easy to get frustrated with that. But that teacher has that sense of patience and creativity to really keep the student in the process. Because I could have given up a million times.
Right.
But he always had one more thing to try.
Holding the interest.
Right? Yeah. It was really fascinating, and I always really appreciated that.
And I suppose that comes to one of the qualities, which is inspiring.
Inspiring, yeah.
Inspiring. I mean, we seek that. I think the world is yearning for inspiration right now. And there's just so much going on. And so when something piques that interest and we're inspired, it's like there's such a sparkle behind it.
Yeah. It's easy to miss. I think a lot of these things are easy to miss because we get so caught up in our everyday.
Right.
And there's a million inspirational memes that can float through your Facebook feed if you're managing your Facebook feed in any way.
Right.
They can float through on any given day. But it's really that human, that human connection with somebody who's living that.
Who's the way they are being is truly one of those inspirational ways. And you guys know it, right? You can see when someone is saying something and they're not being it, you can feel it. You will discern and feel it. But when someone is talking and walking and sitting and breathing and living that, it is so inspiring.
It is. There is a fine line, though, where as the student, you project your stuff onto the teacher. So when that teacher is doing something that may be confusing for you, you see it in a certain way, but you can never really discern the actual disposition of that teacher from your perspective.
Yeah.
Just like you can't for any human being, but especially a teacher, those actions, those words, those things that are being shared can oftentimes be looked at in many different ways.
Right.
It's kind of like, Obi-Wan, he didn't lie. He's like, oh, well, in a sense, your father was killed. But it wasn't it wasn't a lie. It was true from a certain perspective. I'm a Star Wars fan, so.
Yeah. Okay. So I want you to speak about this next one that we jotted down, and that was use of energy in a right way. Because I know, like, Nick here is the Energy Mastery president, certifiers, his courses, his certifications are just like blowing. It's amazing what you and Siobhan, one of our dear teachers, are doing. And obviously I use energy in all of my courses with my clients and students, but I want you to talk about this because the right use of energy is different from the way most people just talk about energy.
Yeah, this is a pretty big topic.
It's probably a whole nother podcast, but let's touch on it here.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's important because it's basically the inner stance of that teacher. We talk about the real subtle layers of that. There is an energetic tone of that teacher, and that teacher, the master teacher, is truly imperturbable.
Right. Oh, say that word again.
Oh, boy.
That's why I didn't repeat it.
Imperturbable. Yeah, I just got to go for it if I try to think about it.
We'll put that in really big letters on the show notes, everyone. Hashtag imperturbable.
Google the spelling of it. But it's that energetic tone that really holds that space. And the teacher is the container for that. And so where we talked about how, the student can project their stuff onto the teacher, the student can make a mess out of things, and all, the master teacher is going to bring up your stuff in some way, shape, or form. Great teachers, or any teacher for that matter, will a skillful teacher will do that at whatever level they're teaching, whether it be at the academic level, the sports level, or the master spiritual level. Whatever it is, they're going to bring up their stuff because they're going to push the boundaries of who you think you are or what you think you know. So your stuff comes up and the teacher's the container for that.
Right.
They almost become a processor in a certain way. The master teacher, number one, knows how to not take that on and own it for themselves.
Right.
Right. But that doesn't stop them from doing that subtle job of helping to process those things.
Right.
So they become that container for that process to happen, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it comes down to that imperturbable stance.
Right.
No matter what comes up, their internal stance will not be affected.
Yeah, that is the epitome of objectivity.
Right. And that'll bring us into some of the other ones where, the outward expression of that can be confusing, but that internal stance is clean, clear, pure. Right. And when they talk about that in the scriptures, it comes up as is words like that, vasanalessness, just
desirelessness,
being a total purity that allows them to be completely objective and present in order to do their job as a teacher.
That's interesting. I never thought about where Nick is picking out some qualities of a bhakti yogi or jnana yogi, which are in the Bhagavad Gita, but purity, when we look at it this way, purity is not taking on anyone else's stuff.
Correct.
Like there's a way to be pure in thought and word and deed, like not using negative words, negative thoughts, but as well, like holding on to but aligning with your own energies and not taking on others. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal because it happens on subtle layers. And so it's very easy for that to build up. In my work with Energy Mastery, I talk to a lot of very empathic people.
Right.
Who are super confused by the information that they're picking up, how to deal with it, their ability
on other people's stuff.
Yeah, their ability to be out in the world. And then what I see so many times is they bite off more than they can chew,
right? Because
they simply don't know how to manage that, right. And so they wind up doing this work without the proper tools to actually manage that energy that's being processed.
Exactly.
And so it becomes really problematic for them, very draining, and then it goes through those cycles of inspired to do it and biting off more than they can chew, and then into a significant amount of time where they need to retreat. And in severe cases, it hits the physical body and they become depleted and or ill, which is challenging, right? But the master teacher, you see, master teachers don't deal with that in that way.
They do not take it on.
They have way better ways to process that and to stay out of that.
Right.
In order to do their job, still keep working on themselves.
Right. Because that never stops.
And retain that level of purity, which the word that I use for that is resiliency.
Yes.
Like Jesus, imperturbable, right? He knew. And he was going that path, and he knew where that path was going to end, but that didn't stop him. Right. And all of his disciples' stuff comes up, and they got their things going on, and he's just imperturbable. He's like, no, this is cool. We're good. Let's go.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. The objectivity, stunning. And it takes me to a quality that is so, so important for a master teacher, and that is really to lead by example. And I was listening to a lecture the other day, and again, referencing Swami Parthasarathy, because he's really the only self-realized soul I know around. And it's pretty amazing to watch him, be around him, and learn from him and his teachings. But he said there's no way that he was talking about himself. He's like, I cannot ask my students to get up at 4 a.m. and I don't get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
He's like, that just will not work. He's like, if I'm asking the students to get up at 4 a.m. or 4:30, I must get up at 4 a.m. or 4:30. And I look at this in the world of corporate or building your business or managing a team. If you're requiring something from your people, it's best that you deliver that as well. Now, obviously, over the structure of companies, things may change and people have different obligations, but I believe a leader must be able to know how to do everything, or at one point have, been a master of that. But at the high level, if you are wanting something from your people, lead by example, do that.
Right. And there are different philosophies on this where some people just are like, just do your gift, like just do what you do and then outsource everything else.
Totally get that as well.
I get that as well. My personal preference is to have a hand-on and to understand how that works. You modeled this beautifully way back in the day when you had the yoga studio.
Yeah.
You'd be in there mopping the floor.
That's because I learned from the Governing Business and Relationships. It wasn't that I always mopped the floor, but if we were done with a shift and the girls at the front desk, God bless Christy and everyone else that worked there, if they were ringing people up and I knew we wanted to get out, I'd grab the Swifter and go in and do it because it was there. Now, it wasn't always the best use of my time. It wasn't something I did every day, but I had no fear around it. I didn't think I was better because this is about like maintaining the cleanliness, the energy of the studio. But I think, again, if we just look at the high vision, if you're looking for a culture of your company, if you're looking for a culture of your family, if you want your children to be off of their phones at the dinner table, make sure you are not on your phone. If you want your children to not fight, how are you speaking to your partner, your spouse? Like this is the high, like, right, the culture, the belief, the essential truth of your family or company. What the leader needs to live that, needs to embody it.
Well, I got a question for you. Just something that pops up in my mind is that leading by example taken to the extreme. In many cases, I've seen becomes this overwhelming feeling of perfectionism, this need to be perfect and
control,
need to, yeah.
And
so like, how do those things balance as far as like, I'm leading the example, but I'm a human being, I'm fallible, and I'm working through my own stuff, and I'm not perfect in that respect, so I don't always take perfect action. Like how do you then bring those two together to keep leading by example and not have
totally. It comes to our next thing, which is the intellect, right? The ability to discern between the pairs of opposites in the world, the right, wrong, good, bad, evil, goodness. It's the ability to look at what has worked and what hasn't worked and move on. Right. So the intellect is, again, we've done podcasts on it. We'll do more. It's not information. It's the muscle within you that you're able to look at like, all right, I did this, didn't quite work, done, over, next. How do I improve it?
That flexibility.
That discernment, that wisdom, right? So, putting everybody in a box of control a certain way you want it, that's not leading by example. Leading by example is understanding that there is a culture, you're going to live that. And then all of these people that are either in your family or work for you, they as well, and Swamiji has talked about this, they have their own personalities. So a true master teacher is going to be able to look at someone, have the intellect to discern what are their gifts? What do they do? How do they operate? What do they need? And apply that to elevate them, to inspire them, to influence them in a positive way.
Right. Because if you're sticking somebody in a job or in a place that's just so against their nature, it's really going to be destructive for them. We've done whole podcast episodes on this, but being true to your nature and doing work that is in alignment with that's going to just make your job easier. That's your tailwind.
Right.
And the master teacher can see that and acknowledge that and keep you and help you to stay on track with that, as long as you're willing to have that sense of faith to follow those instructions,
exactly.
which I got to say, I'm just going to give myself a little pat on the back here.
You go for it.
Is that I'm getting much better at listening.
Oh,
I've been that defiant student, that's just, oh no, I'm going to do it my own way. Totally. I need to be right getting in there. And I got to tell you, the more that I actually listen, not blindly, but to really listen, take it in, use my own intellect to kind of dissect that, turn it around a little bit to make sure that I really understand it and then take the positive action. And this is another part for me, I think, just as a student.
Train of truth
on my need to be right there.
Guys, I heard that, but I guess it's giving Nick like a hell yeah, you're better at communication.
As a just kind of tips for a student, being in the role of the student, is when I can't see that, I have gotten better about taking a leap of faith.
Good. What about as the role of the teacher? Because you play that role to many, many people.
Yeah, that's the same, is just encouraging to say, hey, why don't you try it out for yourself?
Right.
Just you don't got to jump in with both feet right off the bat, but why don't you just take a few steps on your own and really explore that? When we get people, I like the people who are just, they're resistant to like cord cutting and they're like, well, this doesn't work, or why do you got to do that? Or I'll just do it in my head. And I'm like, just give it a try.
Yeah.
Do it this. Here's your prescription, do it a couple, do it 3-4 times a day and just, let's talk again. And then you tell me what's different.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So intellect, this golden substance within us all that we can constantly work to develop, that governs our emotions as well, which leads me to the next quality, which is the right use of emotions.
The right use of emotion.
This is powerful for a master teacher. Do you want to talk about this?
This is one of the things that gets so confusing, though.
It does. Yeah. It does get confusing.
Because we have seen Swamiji throw rubber balls at people. and I've certainly seen my other... some of the other teachers say things or do things that are very confusing.
Direct.
And very direct. Yeah. Very, very. And it's
and I've heard you be very direct with your students and clients.
I have done that. Yeah.
But the key to the right use of emotions, everyone, is that a teacher will speak or say or show emotion to get a point across, but internally they're unaffected. So you always know if someone's truly objective, if they are unaffected. If they're using emotion and they're getting affected, okay, they're human, right? Welcome to this world. Like, they're human. They've been triggered. This happens to all of us. But when there's these few golden souls where they can have a pattern interrupt, they can, use their emotion. They can, as Jesus, walk into a temple and completely annihilate the markets going on there.
Flip over the tables.
Right. And I bet internally he knew exactly what he was doing. The right use of emotion is so powerful. It's powerful when you speak. It's powerful when you teach, that ability to speak to people, to inspire them, to allow them to feel at a different level.
Yeah. This is the one that, for me anyway, it really requires a step back so that my own mind doesn't start to judge that teacher.
Yes.
Right. And to give them the space to really understand what's happening for myself, just as from a learning perspective, but also when that's directed towards me, to understand that, man, like, this is really what I need to shake me out of whatever kind of slumber I'm in, or whatever kind of tamas that is taken hold. It shakes you out of that.
Let me say one thing to that as well, because sometimes, like, I've seen, some of my teachers actually get angry. And my go-to might be like, oh, well, you shouldn't be so worked up. But here's the thing. When something gets triggered within us, that's where you go and look. That's where you go and resolve and solve and clear. So whether or not they should have gotten angry, like, whatever. I'm more concerned, like, well, why is that affecting me? Where can I go to resolve that? Because I don't want to carry that inside.
Yeah, I don't want to carry that
So
judgment.
that's kind of being the master student, the little wizard student.
The opposite side of that is also sometimes very shocking to me, where when a student, when I've just seen in like environments like that, where me personally, it's like I'm getting some frustration. I'm thinking like, man, like, it's time for a smackdown, and I see that master teacher come in with just all kinds of love and compassion and just so soft, and it's like, wow, I might not have taken that approach.
Right.
But it was so effective.
Just having a pulse on what does that person need? Having a pulse. What do your children need? What does your spouse need? What do your students need? What does your team need? What do you need?
And you know what's beautiful about that is it gets you out of yourself.
Yeah,
you stop thinking about yourself and like what you want or the way that you think it's supposed to be, and you really start thinking about that other person and what is it that they need to take one more step towards their highest and best. Like, how can I support that?
Right.
And I just think that's amazing. And that's one thing that really shows me that master teachers are still doing their own work too.
Oh, of course.
Like, they're not just arriving. They're continuing their journey.
They wouldn't be a master if they stopped.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So couple more here, and I know everyone, obviously, as you're listening, there's just so many we could put on here, but I thought it was really important to put in command over the physical body, meaning that, we talk a lot about the mental energy body, the emotional energy body, but we've been given a physical body, the sacred vehicle, so that we can take whatever we process as spiritual, as energy, as action, and perform it in the world. Because if you just sit and meditate or think, you're not integrating, you're not implementing. So the body is the vehicle that allows us to serve humanity, to serve the world. And if we're like dissing all over the body, that's not going to go so well.
Yeah. Well, we're in that process of waking back up to you.
Well, speak for yourself, but
no, but that's it. That's an important one. Jesus demonstrated this. Yeah. They're nailing him to the cross, and he's like, "Hey, forgive them, like they don't know what they're doing."
Mm-hmm. And he walked and he walked. Buddha walked and walked and walked with his disciples as well. I mean, look at in the most recent Saint Teresa, tiny little woman, but I'm pretty sure she took care of herself.
Right.
Is all the physical work that has to be done. So honor your body, whatever that is for you, and like taking care.
Yeah, always. And taking care of it, but also they have that objectivity towards it that I think is so amazing.
Yes.
Right? I'll catch myself sometimes too. I'm hungry, I'm tired. Well, the body is that.
My body is
tired. And you'll pick that up in their language. Mm-hmm. And if you know to look for it, you can pick it up. But it's easy to miss if you're not really listening.
Right. Exactly.
He's delivered the most eloquent lectures when I know his physical body is in extreme pain.
Yeah.
And you would never know.
Never know.
And it's fascinating. And I've seen Siobhan too, in an intense, she's ridiculously sensitive. And I have a little slice of what that feels like when, and I see her, just not really affected by that. And then I'm like, wow, that is some objectivity right there. And what a mastery over the physical form.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one, I have two more that I really want to get to before our time's up. Ability to manifest prosperity in all areas. And I know when I wrote this down, it was understanding prosperity isn't just money. Prosperity isn't just, being well known or respected. It's like the entire being is prosperous. The thoughts are prosperous. The emotions, the attention to detail, everything is prosperous.
Well, Buddha was a good example of this. Mm-hmm. Coming from extreme wealth,
right?
Choosing extreme poverty.
Not that we want you to go out and do that.
No. Well, that was the whole point of it, is like, here's this journey from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Right.
And it's ultimately inherently flawed because it's the internal disposition and the attitude towards the things. That's where you master yourself and then you master the world. You don't master the world and then master yourself, right? It has to come with you first.
Right.
And when that happens, you have this ultimate prosperity. You're tapped into the natural abundance because you're in the flow.
Right. And you're so clear and so aligned, you can manifest rapidly.
Yeah.
Manifest what you desire. You want to create something, there's no fear, there's no intimidation, there's no holding back. You're like, that's it, let's go. And you manifest rapidly.
Yeah. Just being Easter, I think, Jesus with he's got the loaves and the water and the wine, and he's manifesting. He's manifesting. People see it as miracles. They look at it, which it is, But
everything's a miracle.
Yeah, but let's not,
Yeah, but there were other beings today, and possible to manifest faster.
Exactly, and all of us have that ability somewhere programmed into us, and it's just a matter of waking it up.
Exactly.
So as we think about and understand how to manifest, if you try to jump to that end, I think you'll get real frustrated real fast.
Right.
Which you'll wind up working against you. But I always look at these teachers as a model of like, wow, like how can I bridge from where I am to get there? Like, how can I manifest just a little bit more quickly with a little bit more ease? It wasn't like Jesus was sweating bullets, trying to make it work. It was just, this is done.
This is done. This is it. Yeah.
And that's so force. Cool, and the healings that he manifested, and it's just incredible.
Yeah. Beautiful. So here's two super important that I want to convey in the right way, and that is compassion and kindness. But my notes were compassion and kindness with strength. And the reason I put that in there is kindness is a really great quality to have, as is compassion. But this doesn't mean that you roll over. It does not mean that you all of a sudden abandon your opinions or beliefs, but it means there's the ability to have a conversation rather than an argument. There's the ability to release the need to be right, that it's only your way. Especially if someone out there has a soul energy of divine truth and they get in the shadow, all of a sudden they have such a charge about them when people don't see it. And that removes the flexibility. Whereas if you have compassion, you have kindness, you're willing to converse, you're willing to see in this beautiful panoramic way, but still hold on to your beliefs.
Yeah. Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be, sometimes you need to be cruel only to be kind.
Right.
And again, how that outward behavior can be misconstrued. But yeah, it's not about abandoning what you stand for, but and I think this is something that would really impact our world and the dynamics of our communication, how we're talking to one another, is that that sense of respect and care
it's lost
for another human being, while still staying true to what you firmly believe in yourself, and staying open to the possibilities that, hey, I might not know everything, and maybe there is another way to look at this that is not so polarized.
And this goes in, for those of you familiar with the speaker industry, the expert industry, the guru industry, like if you see someone on stage a certain way, I've witnessed this too many times. And then they're checking into a hotel and they're yelling at the hotel clerk. They're screaming at their staff. They're being belligerent or abusive. That is not kindness. And that is not objectivity. That's them putting on a front and getting off stage and being the person that they are. That is not a master teacher.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah. You'll it's sad that you see that.
There's many people that don't do it as well, but I'm just saying, for us as humans, again, bringing it back to you, who do you lead? You lead yourself, you lead your family, you lead perhaps your community, your neighborhood, your own business or a company or whatever. Leading by example, having compassion, having kindness, but with strength, having objectivity, the right use of emotion, the ability to inspire and influence in a positive way. Like this, if every person picked one trait to work on every week, just think how quickly the world would shift.
Yeah. And that respect for another human's choice.
Yeah. Free will choice.
Krishna, at the very end of that whole thing, eloquently lays it out step by step by step. Here it is, the whole thing, the whole formula.
Right.
Do what you want.
Yeah, it's your choice, dude.
It's your choice, man.
Arjuna.
Do what you want.
Fight, don't fight. You choose.
Make your own choice.
Oh.
And just totally unattached to that.
Right.
To let another human have that sense of sovereignty, to just do and make their own choices. This is really a beautiful thing. And I think that level of care and respect for one another really goes a long ways. And man, it's just so challenging sometimes when you see somebody making a bad choice or a destructive choice, or you want it to be a certain way and wanting to interject yourself, and just it's so easy to lose respect. Right. And I think that's so important to have that care and compassion and kindness is it starts with respect.
Yeah.
Respect for that human being.
Yeah, respect. So, of course, we left out love, not meaning to leave out love. Love is the divine harmonization, the identification with all beings, with all energetic creations. It is not meaning love and attachment. It's just like a true understanding that we are all interconnected. And again, when we see that, elevates the game, everyone. So my wish for all of you listening is to pick a quality or two that really speaks to you. Maybe it's one that we mentioned, maybe it's one that you come up with, and work on that. Like be meticulous in your thoughts and your words and your actions around that. And I know that you will, from that place, begin to see some true transformation shifts in your life that will be magical. Yeah.
I'd invite you to consider some of the mentors in your life, some of the people who've meant a lot to you and taught you, and look for some of those qualities and explore those. Please feel free, if you're on the page, to share in the forum below. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I think like kind of it's easier to see that in some other, in other people, and then to model that in a certain way. And the other one I would say is just to kind of piggyback off of what you said is, if something really resonates with you, but if you're always compassionate, if compassion always resonates with you, maybe look at a different one to expand your range a little bit, to explore what that sense of leadership and true mastery is in another area as well. And it'll give you a new perspective on that one that, that you always go back to.
Exactly.
Because sometimes it's really easy to stay in that one quality, and
completely.
It's you get good perspective from looking and exploring.
And before we go, if you're looking for a mentor or a teacher and what we teach resonates with you, we'll have an application link on the show notes. Please fill that out. We'll schedule a time to chat, email, or talk about it. And most importantly, go out and express love to yourself and those that mean the most to you. And thanks for being here.
Peace.
Namaste.